Good morning, everyone. It is Rob. I hope you're all doing well. I am back this week with another video. This week we're going to be taking a look at the inside of the Savage Worlds Rifts Blood and Banes book. As I said, this is, well, I don't know when you're watching it. You might be watching it at 3 in the morning. I don't know. But it's morning here where I am recording. I normally record my videos in the evening or at night, but for the next couple of weeks I've got things going on, so I'm going to be doing some daytime recording. So the lighting's a little different, and there may be some background noises between my dogs and traffic outside. So for that, excuse me, I apologize. It can't be helped. So I have been into Rifts for a long time. It was not my first role-playing game. D&D was my first role-playing game. My second role-playing game was Star Wars from West End Games. And then I think I moved to GURPS after that. And I eventually found Rifts. And I found Rifts because of my cousin Dale. So if you're watching this, Dale, this one's for you, babe. He introduced me to Rifts. I had not heard of Palladium books at the time, and have been a fan ever since then. The first two books that I was introduced to were the main book, which this one is very old, a very old printing from like '98, I believe, and has seen more than its fair share of use. There's a newer, more updated version of the rule book called the Ultimate Edition of Rifts now. It's in hardback, but even though the cover's kind of rough, man, you gotta love that art. It's fantastic. But he introduced me to that, and World Book 1, Vampire Kingdoms. And I immediately fell in love. It was definitely love at first sight. I was all over it. So you can imagine those being my two primary intros to the game, and my first loves with Rifts. How excited I was when Savage Worlds released Blood and Banes. Now, you have all these world books for Rifts, and Vampire Kingdoms is just World Book 1. These books that they're putting out now, which this is Book 5 of the Rifts books, they tend to condense and consolidate and put information from several world books into one book. And I'm okay with that, because after reading through it, it definitely gives you enough information to run stuff in any of those world book settings. And it's all obviously with Savage World stats instead of Palladium book stats, and integrates the Tomorrow Legion into the stories, which is nice. If you want more than what's in here, the few chapters you get on each setting, then go get the older books. There's even a newer version of this book, the revised, I believe. And I've read through it too. It's really good. So if you get a chance and you want more information, I highly suggest picking up the older Rifts books from Palladium. They're still in business, so I mean, you can order directly from their website if you want to, or Amazon or eBay, or maybe your local game store can get them. I don't know. But today we're going to be taking a look at Blood and Banes and what all's in it. What does it cover? So first of all, like all the new books, it's a nice hardback book. And when you open it up, you get a full art spread of that art from the cover with that vampire hunter taking out some vampires, which is just beautiful. And they do that on all the books now. You get a full art spread. So let's start going through it. Now, I'm not going to read the book to you, obviously, but I am going to go page by page and let you know what's in it. So if you're curious about what's in Blood and Banes, or any of the other videos that I'm going to do, because I'm going to do one on Arcanum, Mysticism, and Empires of Humanity, and let you know what's in those. I'm just going to go over what's in them so you know specifically when you go to buy one which one you want. or buy them all. Help support the game so it stays in print. So the first thing you have is an introduction, like with any of these books, talking about Blood and Banes. And in the introduction, it tells you that the information here was pulled from, but not restricted to, RIFTS Vampire Kingdoms original and revised. So RIFTS World Book 1, RIFTS 14, The New West, RIFTS 20, Canada, RIFTS 23, The Zetikix Invasion, RIFTS 26, Dinosaur Swamp, which is over here in Georgia, RIFTS 28, Arsno, RIFTS 29, Mad Haven, RIFTS 35, Megaverse in Flames, RIFTS Aftermath, and RIFTS Sourcebook Vampires. So if you're looking for more information than what's in here, it tells you what books to go look for, because there's a lot more fluff. There's a good bit of fluff in here. There's plenty of fluff in here that you never have to look at the old books if you don't want to. You could stick strictly with the stuff in here. But if you want more of the fluff, you could go get the other RIFTS books from Palladium, and it gives you more of that. That being said, after reading through this, and some of it I've read completely, and then some of it I've just kind of skimmed through, mainly because I am preparing a campaign that is going to take place in the Vampire Kingdoms. So I've really focused on that. It was my first love with RIFTS, so it makes sense. But reading through that, even outside of the adventures that are already in here, just the information they give you very easily spawned more and more ideas as I was going through it. Alright, so let's start. Chapter 1, you have iconic frameworks. So what new iconic frameworks do we have? We have the Knight of the White Rose. About 3 pages on them. You have the Necromancer. And yes, Necromancers are good in the Vampire Kingdoms. It's a good thing to have them around. Are there bad guys? Of course, most of them are bad guys. However, there are some, shall we say, ethical Necromancers that will use raising the dead to fight vampires for specific reasons. Number one, you could raise an army of zombies to fight off wild vampires or whatever, and they can't be turned, So, I mean, that's a benefit as opposed to sending human fighters out. But you have the Necromancer, then you have the Shifter, and those guys are definitely some powerful practitioners of magic. They can manipulate raw cosmic energies that bind the Megaverse together. Alright, you have the Heroic Vampire. So secondary or wild vampires could become a heroic vampire because they're not enthralled and forced under the will of the vampire intelligence that runs everything. And some of them are just deluded characters, delusional characters. Let's see, what else we got? We have the Werecat, which translates roughly from an RCC instead of an OCC. But you have the different type, you have different Werecat breeds that you can choose from in here. And then, like all of the books, you have the Mars variants. Mars are mercenaries, adventurers, rogues, and scholars. And they give you a lot of broken down different things you can play under that category, just like from the main book. In this one, they have included the Barbarian Echo Wizard, or Eco Wizard, the Dinosaur Hunter, the Vampire Hunter, and then we have 2 new races that are in here. We have the Centaur and the Sasquatch have been added. You've got great new edges. You've got iconic edges like Dimensional Portal, Gardener of the White Rose, Gateway Knight, Master Necromancer, Pounce, Shift the Arcane, Teleportional Hitchhiker, Thrall, Slow Kill Bite, and then you have professional edges like Beast Rider, Frontiersman, Pathfinder, Squire of the White Rose, Reed's Ranger, Tundra Ranger, Vampire Killer, and that one is the basis for playing the Elite Vampire Killer. because not every vampire killer is going to be tied to Reed's Rangers. You could definitely run a group that's working with Reed's Rangers, but you could also run your own group of vampire, because there are other groups of vampire hunters out there, and not all of them are good guys either. So then we hit chapter 2, and we're looking at vehicles. There's all kinds of vehicles. There's mountain bikes, hover vehicles, and then we look at body armor. We have Mystic Knight armor, stake-proof vest, steel tree armor, vampire waterfield. Then you have a section on power armor and robot vehicles, weapons like silver wood, steel tree, supernatural materials, ranged weapons. They give you silver ammo, anti-vampire railgun rounds, water guns and cannons, which are very important because water does damage to vampires. Holy water especially does damage to vampires. Techno equipment like a field coffin, phantom gloves, water tank, white rose cuttings. And then your weapons also have their chart in here, the cleaned up charts they've done with this edition, which is nice. And chapter 3 is called Tomorrow Legion Archives, and each one is like a segment of somebody's report back to the Tomorrow Legion on specific areas. So the first one we have is a report from Jamie Castro, Legionnaire report on the Vampire Kingdoms. Then we have another report on the Zetikix. We have a report on Madhaven, the Dinosaur Swamp, Calgary and the Monster Kingdom. And then we hit chapter 4 with the Game Master's Handbook. And chapter 4 is really short. It's one page front and back, because all it adds is the mission profile table where you can, choose your own or do random missions, and this works in conjunction with the mission tables from the Game Master's Guide and the Savage Foes of North America. Then we hit chapter 5, where it's going to go into a lot more detail on each of the sections covered in this book. So you have, first, the Vampire Kingdoms, Hierarchy of Blood. And it starts out talking about the vampire intelligence, which are those monstrosities that have managed to come through the rifts and lock themselves into our reality. They've gained a foothold here. And I think it tells you there's I think it tells you how many of them there. I think there's 6 total that have actually locked onto our dimension, and they do so by creating, putting a shard of themselves into someone who's made a pact with them and creating a master vampire. The master vampire then creates other vampires under him called secondary vampires, and they create vampires under them that generally are wild vampires. Then we go into the different empires, because it's not one united kingdom. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 major vampire kingdoms that are at each other's throats most of the time. Another vampire kingdom that's very small on the Yucatan Peninsula, and that's because it's not fully anchored in this world because of some shenanigans with an ancient god and where it is, and I'm not going to give all that away. Buy the book. It's good stuff. And then there's also stuff going on at, I think it's Fort Tombstone, and I think there's another place too. Can't remember. I'll look. But anyway, you have the actual kingdoms, and it talks about the major cities: Mexico City, Tula, other cities of note, and it has a whole list of them. It tells you what life is like in those cities, and it varies from city to city, obviously. You have the Mulot Kingdom, which introduces the high-tech blood pool, which is a horrific fate worse than death for humans. Drums of War, because there is war going on between the different kingdoms. Elsagen, which is a very important city that is very overpopulated, and one of the smart things I thought they did with now, well, we have too many vampires, but we don't want to get rid of vampires because we're going to need them for our coming war. So they staked like 1,800 vampires, and they have them in a secure location where they're basically just in stasis until they remove the stakes and they can use them in their coming war. Alright, then we move on to the Milta Kingdom. Political shifts, major cities, other sites of notes, and the, I'm not sure I say this right, Izult's Kingdom. Again, talking about war on the horizon, major cities, and then the Chichen Itza is the one in the Yucatan Peninsula that has a risen god that is at odds with the vampire intelligence there. Then it has a section talking about vampires in the Southwest. Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, which was a huge section in the original book, and it gets a very good treatment in this book as well. You know, it's a horrible place, actually. Crime is rampant, the city is corrupt as hell, and they try to convince everybody that it's vampire free, or is it? They talk about whether or not there are vampires in Ciudad Juarez, the gangs, you know, the Guild of the Gifted, the Sykes, the Skivers, the Subs, the Guard, which I think are really neat. Yeah, then there's also the stuff that's going on at Fort Tombstone, and whether or not there's a vampire intelligence involved in that, I'll leave that up to your gaming to decide. But the blood cult there and what they're doing. And Fort Tombstone is built on the remains of the old city of Tombstone from pre-RIFTS. The building of a new vampire army. Colorado. Then we have a section, Slayers and Sanctuaries. Land of ranchers and farmers. And you have Fort Reed, which is where Doc Reed has his growing army of vampire hunters. And it's where most vampire hunting games in RIFTS take place, or at least stem from. Fort Reed today, forming of Reed's Rangers. It has all the original Rangers in here. Doc Reed himself, and you know, fully statted out. These are his stats, right? Yes. Doc Reed means well, but just from what you read here and what I've read in the other books, especially the revised vampire book, he is becoming more and more insane and believing in his own divinity, and he has a plan. And it's not a good one. It's a bad plan, but nobody can tell him a difference. Then there are several other places that are talked about in here. The Tomorrow Legion and the Vampire Kingdoms and how they are tied to it. Then that section ends with a savage tale called A Trap is Set and Vampire Kingdom Encounters right here. So we're going to scoot past that to Chapter 6, the Zetikix Hivelands. This is up in the Minnesota area, Minnesota-Canadian border. It tells you about the Horde, the Zetikix biology, their life cycle, their caste system, workers, diggers, leapers, warriors, hunters, nannies, super warriors, young queens and elder queens. It tells you about their hives, the towers, the mass transit, the subterranean levels, the life cycle of the colony itself. And then it tells you about the six Zetikix hives and where they are. Then what war with them, the Zetikix is like, the coalition states being against the Zetikix and how they are handling it, the Laszlo war against them, the Psystalkers' private war against them, and then we have the Tomorrow Legion and how they are dealing with them. And then that section ends with another savage tale, Stirring the Hive. Alright, and then we go into Chapter 7, the Mutant Lands. And it begins with a section on Madhaven, which is the old Manhattan area, and mutants, Haven mutants. And it has a sidebar in here for the different types of mutants. There are Beastmen, Dinomen, Leopardmen, Mantismen, Metalmorphs, Pseudomen, Quillmen, Savage Lummox, Knights of the Order of the White Rose, and then we have a subsection on the Dinosaur Swamp, which is the North Carolina down to Florida area, with Georgia right in the middle. One of my other favorite places because, you know, dinosaurs. The inhabitants of the dinosaur swamp, the barbarian tribes, the wolf runners, the rams, the devil horde, homesteaders and side stalkers here. Talks about the old Carolinas, talks about Georgia and Atlanta, Fort Hawkins. Then we move on to a section on Florida, time holes, the jungle castle, the barrier islands, then the Tomorrow Legion and how they are dealing with the mutant lands, and a savage tale called The Collector. But this one gets 2 savage tales. The other savage tale is called Moby Rex. Nice play on words there. Then chapter 8 is the Calgary Monster Kingdom, which is where Hell Lord Doom and the Hell Pit are, and they are trying to bring an army of demons in to conquer Earth. And you have Hell Lord Doom, nice picture there, and then he statted out over here. Vancouver in British Columbia, the city of Izion, Vancouver Island, the Tundra Rangers, and then the Tundra Rangers code in the sidebar there. Tomorrow Legion and how they're dealing with them, and then a savage tale, Northwest Passage. Alright, so we're going to move past that. Then the next section is chapter 9, and it is a full plot point campaign, not just a savage tale, because the savage tales are more like one-shots that you play. This is a full campaign called Into the Desert Night, which I'll be running for my party, and with other stuff thrown in. But it is obviously Into the Desert Night is dealing with the vampire kingdoms. So I'm looking forward to that. And I've read through it. It's really good. And let's see. I don't want to give anything away, so we're just going to skip through what's in the plot point campaign. Excuse me. Then we have Allies and Adversaries section. Kind of your 2-part bestiary, because the next part's monsters. But the Allies and Adversaries starts out with the Cyber Horsemen of Izion, Dinosaur Hunters, Knights of the White Rose, Mutant Barbarians, Mutant Shamans, Sasquatch, Tundra Rangers, Vampire Hunters, Breed's Ranger Vampire Hunters, Were-Jaguars. And then we go into monsters. We have Bats, Blood Priest, Caterpillar Men, Chupacabras, Deathweaver Spider Demons, Demon Animals, and then you have dinosaurs broken into groups where they're armored herbivores or flying reptiles or carnivorous or whatever, and it's done in such a way that you can pick any of them that fit into that category and use the stats that you need out of here to represent the different types of dinosaurs without having, because it would take an entire book to just do every kind of dinosaur. But this is actually done really well. Large dinosaurs, marine dinosaurs, small carnivorous, the raptors, the bird type dinosaurs. Then you have entities, ghost, hauntings, poltergeist, entity possessing, tectonics, giant ruin worm, mummies, phantom wolves, vampire masters. Alright, and then we have secondary vampires. A vampire familiar, which is like a humanoid counterpart to the vampire intelligence, that he can go out and survey his land he controls, I suppose. Then you have the vampire intelligence itself with its stats. And if you're looking for the wild vampire, they are in Savage Foes of North America, one of your 3 core books. It is book number 3, but that is where the wild vampires are. And then you have werewolves, because why not? Wendigos, Zetikix warriors, diggers, leapers, nannies, queen elder, queen young, and super warriors. And then we hit the index, and then the book finishes up again with that same artwork from the front. There's a lot of information in here. There's a lot packed into this 190-page book. Obviously, they didn't transcribe word for word from the world books because that would, the book would be like this thick. But they give you enough information in here that you can run Rifts games in this, no problem. I happen to collect the older Rifts books just because I love them. I love this game. Again, thank you to my cousin Dale, who got me interested in Rifts so many years ago. If you're collecting the books up to play like me, you're going to want all of them so that you have all the information they put out. I have more videos coming on the other books when some of them get here. But yeah, if you're only like, if you don't care about Scyscape and the Federation of Magic and stuff, and you wanted to focus on just the dinosaur or the mutant lands with the dinosaur swamp, or as we call it here, the Nightmare Swamp, or if you wanted to focus on just the Vampire Kingdoms, then you could just pick up that book, your core books. You're definitely going to want the 3 core books for the the Tomorrow Legion Player's Guide, the Game Master's Handbook, and the Savage Foes book. But then outside of that, if the world books that you want are covered in here, then just grab this one. Or maybe yours is covered in Arcana and Mysticism, and that's the one you want. I want them all because I want to be able to, tell stories all over. Very well done book. I'm very pleased with it, very happy with it. I should stop dropping stuff on the table like that. Again, let me give a shout out to Sean Robertson at Robertson's Rebellion. That's the name of his YouTube channel. Go over and check it out. He puts up a lot of videos and info about this. He is the line designer for Savage Worlds Rifts now. He seems like a really nice guy. And we know that there are other books in the works, like the Atlantis book. Looking forward to that one too. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Each of these other books, as they come in, I'm going to do a video and let you know what's in them. Just kind of giving you a preview. I can't sit here and read the whole book to you, obviously, but the preview should let you know if it's got the information you want. If you have any questions about stuff that may or may not be in the book, you can feel free to put them in the comments. If you like the video, thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, then you can thumbs down, email me. I will refund your full purchase price for what you paid to watch this video. But if you like it, thumbs up, share the channel, share the videos. Feel free. And I'll be back next week with more videos. And until then, good morning and good luck.